such a common problem that when we get accused of a crime or a traffic ticket, everybody feels like they got to enter a plea. Okay. Let me, 1 second here. I'm going to just, some people have their video up. It might be a little distracting. So, I was just finishing these notes up. I'm just going to say any plea has major legal implications. Any plea has major legal implications. Now, what does that mean? You might have heard that if you go to court on a traffic court case or a criminal charge, you don't, they're going to force you to enter a plea. And that's true. They're going to try to force you to enter a plea. They're going to say you need to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty, yada, yada. I can tell you, after training lots of people in criminal cases using our slam dunk program, which is a special criminal case consulting coaching program we have, that we've had people held up in court for over a year just on the first appearance. And then there's other things you can do to sort of deal with the case, or at least prepare to fight if you have to fight. But the key to this whole thing is entering a plea. You hear people say all the time, oh, well, just challenge jurisdiction. But most people don't have the first clue what that actually means. And this document is available in the premium member area in the downloads section where there's some downloadable documents, and the one that says start here, click on that one and you'll find this do not enter a plea document in the folder. You can sort by date to find some of the more recent ones we've added. But I'd suggest you go take a look at this. So what you're seeing on screen here will be available. So just be knowledgeable about how to enter court. A lot of people don't actually have a clue what entering a plea means. They also don't have a clue what challenging jurisdiction means, but you do this both at the same time. So I'm hoping in this little brief instruction, I can show you some ways to do that. So appearing in court amounts to submitting oneself to the jurisdiction of the court. Wait a minute. If I'm going to challenge jurisdiction, I better not appear, right? No, you better appear and do it correctly. Somebody contacted me today. Again, they failed to appear. What do I do now? I go, I don't know, because I tell you not to do that. There's a reason I tell you not to do that. It's very hard to overcome. You're going to have to go and do something. Invite yourself in, But so how do you deal with this? Well, there are consequences associated with submission. And if there is no notification, there's no warning, no options for opting out of such servitude. It's in violation of the law against involuntary servitude to be forced to go in and do something and say something. Okay? So there's a term that says entering a plea of any kind as a person testifying is a person testifying against himself. You're admitting to the genius of the record. Okay? The court, through its judicial officer, takes it upon itself to enter a plea on the behalf of the defendant, right? You need to object when they enter a plea for you. All right? And then they'll try to tell you, we have to appoint an attorney to you. No, you have a right to counsel of your choice. There's a difference between counsel and an attorney. There's some research you can do on that. But the bottom line is, if you enter a plea or you take a lawyer, you grant a jurisdiction. You can't challenge jurisdiction once you enter a plea and take a lawyer. Now you technically can challenge jurisdiction at any time, but now you got to go remove stuff and back things up. So try to remember, I didn't want to enter a plea, so I'm going to give you some tips on what you can say. Okay. So I'm presenting the following facts. Okay. Make no appearances. Now that doesn't mean you don't show up. You got to come in. You're not going to stand behind the bar and get yourself arrested. You make a visitation upon the court, showing within the court, standing before the court. But at no time will I ever submit to the jurisdiction of the court. I have a friend who's in prison right now who refused to enter into jurisdiction of the court. He maintained that. They still put him through court and even sentenced him, but he missed a few other things he should have done. And but because of that, he has an appealable case. That's good. You have to create a reason for appeal. You don't just want to just say, I want to appeal. So when we talk about admitting to the genius of the court, it's not commonly used in modern legal practice. However, in the context of a plea hearing, entering any kind of plea, whether it be guilty, not guilty, or no contest, is a formal response to criminal charges and signifies the defendant acknowledgement and submission to the jurisdiction of this court. The act of entering a plea is a crucial step in the legal process, and you don't have to do it the way they want you to do it. Now, they'll push back and tell you can't and tell you what you have to do. People will say, well, the judge said I had to. That you got to listen carefully what these judges say. That's not what they're saying. Are you required to waive your right to remain silent? Well, if it's a right, then you're not required. But people do it all the time. Entering a plea is the equivalent of not remaining silent. Can you ask questions and remain silent? Yes. Remaining silent means anything you say and do can be used against you. But as long as you're asking questions, you're in a strength position. So, you want it, once you get past that gate, though, and you've entered a plea, basically all that is left for you is probably to plea bargain, make a defense if you think you have a defense, negotiate a deal, whatever. All these things aren't all bad. I'm just saying, though, you're limiting your options if you, one, you don't appear, then you get a warrant for forcing you to appear, and two, if you enter a plea. So we're going to give you some ideas how to enter the plea, okay? But the implications, it is the jurisdiction of the court once you enter the plea. That's people stand there and, they've entered a plea or a plea's been entered, then they try to challenge jurisdiction without doing it correctly. You end up getting just hammered by the judge. So just keep in mind, there's this, I heard this from a Supreme Court, it's a Harvard law professor. I can't remember his name, but he talked about individuals who are incarcerated there because they voluntarily agreed to be there. And that's actually, I forget which Supreme Court justice said it too. But anyway, point is, they voluntarily agreed to there. How do they volunteer? They entered into an agreement, guilty or not guilty, or essentially either one, or the third one, no contest, is entering into the jurisdiction of the court. You entered in voluntarily. Okay. So the plea is simply a means to submit to the jurisdiction of the court. You're submitting to it when you open your mouth and speak those words. But they forced me to. They didn't force you to answer. They didn't force you to not answer with a question. Okay. And of course, if you had an attorney standing there, he already enters a plea for you because you give him general power of attorney, which means he has full control of anything that he wants to do with you. He works as an officer of the court. Not a good thing if you want to challenge jurisdiction or avoid entering a plea. Frankly, you probably have no business in there. Okay. So entering a plea is essentially testifying against yourself. Okay. The Miranda warning states anything anyone who's being arrested may say or do, anything a person being arrested may say or do will be used against them in a court of law. And they really say will, they mean it. If you even acknowledge and answer a certain way, if you stand up and respond, you're acknowledging, okay, that you're speaking by your motions, okay? So we can get into oath and testifying and all that, but the Miranda warning gave you the opportunity to exercise your freedom of speech and your right to remain silent, but we don't do it. You have the right to ask questions. All right. You have a right to have your grievances heard. But what we do is we just fall into the script of the court so easily. Okay. So we could say things like, Your Honor, I cannot enter a plea until jurisdiction is proven.